Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly kind of terrifying paradox. Think about it. The exact same modern world that saved humanity from starvation and nature is now, well, threatening our very existence. But what if the key to our survival isn't more technology, but actually traditional Korean philosophy? We're going to look closely at how we define progress and why the answers to our modern global crises might just be found by looking deeply into indigenous traditions. Okay, here is our roadmap for today. 1. Achievements and limitations of modernity. 2. In search of alternative modernity. 3. What is autogenous modernity? 4. Philosophy of Donghak and Daesun. And finally, 5. A new civilizational alternative. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Achievements and limitations of modernity. To figure out where we're going, we first have to understand the foundation of our current world. We need to look at what Western modernity actually achieved and where it went so terribly wrong. Because, to fix the machine, you got to know exactly how it was built. Sociologist Max Weber's theory of rationalization shows us that modernity didn't just spontaneously happen, it was meticulously built. It was constructed on science, capital, and the state, efficiently managing human life. And honestly, this brought massive, unprecedented leaps in our daily existence. Just think about this for a second. Average life expectancies jumped from around 30 years to 80 years. It established democratic systems, the rule of law, and an entire worldview dominated by human reason and scientific evidence. The sheer triumph of the modern era really can't be overstated. For over 1,000,000 years of human history, day-to-day survival was a brutal struggle against the elements. Modernity completely flipped the script. It freed us from those primal fears of nature and starvation. It literally gave everyday citizens access to conveniences, food, and wealth that ancient emperors could only dream of. That is an undeniable, staggering achievement for humanity. But here is the devastating twist. The exact same modernity, driven by unbridled desire and hyper-rationality, has now brought humanity to an unprecedented crisis. We're talking about global threats to our very existence: climate change, nuclear proliferation, and this extreme human alienation where we just become mere cogs in a giant capitalist machine. The rationality that saved us created systems so incredibly large and cold that they now threaten to crush us. And that's exactly what sparked the rise of postmodern criticism. Which brings us to Section 2, In Search of Alternative Modernity. The crucial point here is, if Western modernity has reached a lethal limit with environmental collapse and alienation, where on earth do we go next? We obviously can't go backward, so we have to find a completely new path forward. Philosophically, we have undergone some massive shifts across different eras. Back in the medieval era, truth was entirely divine. Then we moved to the modern era, which really championed absolute, universal, scientific truths and the idea of the autonomous individual. But as those systems fractured, we entered the postmodern era. Now, that's characterized by relative truths, scientific uncertainty, and a total loss of absolute centers. The problem? Postmodernism is largely a critique. It deconstructs everything, but we still need a functional, solid alternative to actually build our future upon. To find a real solution, we absolutely must stop assuming all progress comes straight from the West. Scholars point out that the fetishism of European modernity, this pervasive idea that Europe is the sole blueprint for civilization, is actually a huge obstacle today. We need a multi-layered perspective. We need to look for alternative modernities around the globe, recognizing that societies like China and Japan had their own indigenous forms of modern advancement brewing entirely separately from Europe. Section 3. What is autogenous modernity? Let's move to our central concept and see how this builds a completely new framework for societal progress. This is where things get really hopeful. Autonomous modernity is a total paradigm shift. It isn't about importing Western ideas or playing some global game of catch-up, not at all. It's about discovering a distinct, powerful form of modern advancement that grew naturally from native roots. It means that the seeds of modernity, things like human rights, rationality, social progress, were already present and sprouting within Eastern traditions long before Western ships ever arrived. What's wild about this autogenous modernity is how it literally compresses the timeline. While the West experienced modernity and then postmodernity sequentially, autogenous modernity often achieves both of those characteristics simultaneously. It manages this by relying on holistic, non-Western reasoning. It utilizes what we call outside thought, breaking completely free from Western analytical constraints to offer a totally fresh perspective on how human society can be organized. Section 4. Philosophy of Donghak and Daesun. So, how does this theoretical framework actually look in practice? Let's examine Korea's own indigenous examples to see this powerful philosophy in action. Founded in the late Joseon period by Choi Jae-yu, Donghak was not just some peasant resistance movement. It was a profound philosophical and civilizational innovation. It introduced the concept of the nation-state and modern equality, but it did so entirely from an Eastern perspective. It is the absolute prime realization of autogenous modernity in Korea. This comparison right here is absolutely vital. While the West analyzes the world by breaking things apart, dividing humans from nature, isolating individuals into little autonomous units, Donghak uses what we call correlative reasoning. This means understanding the universe as an interconnected, generative whole. It's not about dividing and conquering nature. It's about ethical empathy and seeing how the collective thrives together. It's literally an entirely different operating system for society. This beautiful concept of inner transcendence is arguably the crown jewel of Donghak thought. In the West, God or absolute truth was often seen as something separate, high up in the sky, right? Well, Donghak argued that the fundamental principle of the universe physically resides within every single human body. By doing so, it placed ultimate, cosmic value within everyday people, effectively birthing a Korean democratic ideal straight from its own native spiritual roots. Building on that amazing foundation of Donghak, Daesun thought emerged later and actually foresaw the existential crisis humanity is facing today. It offered a highly unique framework called Haewon Sangsang. This translates roughly to resolving deep-seated grievances for mutual beneficence. Think of it as a mechanism for ultimate conflict resolution. Instead of a winner-takes-all rationalism, it provides a highly practical philosophy for healing past traumas and ensuring that all parties can flourish together. Section 5. A new civilizational alternative. We've seen the crises, and we've explored the Korean philosophical solutions. So what are the practical takeaways for our world today? How do we actually use this? These major implications show us that indigenous modernity is not just some historical artifact to be studied in a museum. It's an active, living blueprint. It calls for consilience, a brand new balance between the secular and the sacred. By restoring this holistic, correlative reasoning, we can finally stop treating the planet as a lifeless object to be mined. We can creatively fuse the technological and rational strengths of the West with the empathetic, interconnected wisdom of the East, using principles like Haewon Sangsang to resolve our most terrifying global conflicts. I want to leave you with this final thought. Western modernity gave us the tools to master the world, but it also brought us to the very brink of destroying it. If we are going to survive the climate crisis and the profound societal fractures of our time, could the ancient, holistic wisdom of autogenous modernity, this incredible fusion of the secular and the sacred, be the absolute only way to pull us back? It's a really powerful question to ponder. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.